Old Town Wuxi, China. Linnea exhaled a big breath to move the sweaty strands of hair off her forehead while she rummaged in the deep recesses of her bag to find her keys. Too many commuters and the lack of space had made her morning bus ride hot and miserable. Now she could relax because she was here, at her store. She still couldn't get used to the words. Feeling a burst of impatience, she dug beneath the old packs of chewing gum, a few folded love notes from Jet, and a half-empty bottle of water until she finally touched metal. She pulled the keyring out and took a step back to look up at the sign over the door. Vintage Muse. Jet had hung it the day before, and Linnea had stepped outside at least a dozen times to look at it. She'd painted it herself, and loved the elaborate characters and the buds of pink Linnea flowers, the symbol of her own name etched around the border. It was a little piece of her up there, and she couldn't be more proud. It was hard to believe, but she was finally getting her chance to rise above the low expectations that society had set for her as an orphan. More importantly, if she succeeded, she would make her Nai and Yeye proud, the only parents she'd ever known, and show them the years of love and care they'd given her after finding her abandoned on the street were all worth it. She felt a lump rise in her throat as she realized she'd no longer have to bow down to obnoxious boss men, or work in the streets in the freezing winter or the scorching summers. She'd done it. Or at least she'd almost done it. Time would tell whether she'd be a success or have to go back to slinging tires or hawking wares from the sidewalk. She quickly looked around at the other shops and could see by their still dark store windows that she was the first one on the block to arrive. It had been hard to get up so early, but today was the most important day of her life thus far. If she didn't get going, her grand opening wasn't going to be so grand. She looked through her large, empty picture window and sighed. Yet another huge project to throw together this morning. Now she wished she'd asked some of her sisters for help, but in her usual stubborn way, she hadn't wanted to burden anyone else. Now she had a long list of tasks befitting at least a dozen workers to accomplish on her own, all in only a few hours. Overwhelming, but it would be a while before she could actually afford to hire employees, so she'd just have to make do with her own two hands. Ready to tackle the day, she unlocked the door and walked through. She stood in the middle of the room and put her hands on her hips. There was so much to do. She approached a box, opened the flaps, and began to pull out shirts and stack them on the shelves next to it, trying to sort by size. The shirts were her signature item, and the money earned from their sales had helped pay back the original business loan to Jet. She held up one of her favorite shirts. Printed across the front was a graphic she had sketched of what used to be called a tiger kitchen range. In the old days, the Wuxi people would line up at local shops to buy hot water to shower with. On the shirt, the huge pipe, what they called the fuel mouth, that brought in the water looked like the head of a tiger. The two big pots it poured into resembled the body, and the chimney mimicked a swishing tail. From afar it was simply a tiger, but close up the detail on the shirt was amazing. Now there were only 8 such kitchens remaining in all of Wuxi. Linnea didn't want those pieces of history to disappear, and given the sudden success of her shirts, obviously neither did the Wuxi residents who had bought from her. Other shirts sported graphics of old street signs, subway tickets, and other old China memorabilia. Her shirts had been categorized as urban vintage, and Linnea was still astounded at the popularity of them. Somehow, without any real advertising, she had sold out repeatedly until she'd finally found a supplier to help her keep up. But now that she had a real store with walls and a door, and no longer relied on selling from a small cart on the street, she could sell other vintage pieces in addition to her signature shirts. Many of the things she'd already collected were strategically scattered around the room, waiting to be displayed to entice buyers. Linnea wiped the sweat from her brow and picked up the pace. She had left too much undone the day before. She'd never finish in time.